Hello. I'm Hinrich. I used to work at GDS in the very early days, and since then I've sort of done lots of freelance jobs, but I do a lot of work for Content Design London, which is run by Sarah Richards, who used to be the head of content here at GDS. And I'm going to talk to you about training content designers, what kind of training is out there, what we do at Content Design London. So this goes a little bit beyond the sort of content and service remit, but I thought it would be good for you maybe to hear what's sort of out in the world there and how, what kind of issues people have when they come to us. So we do quite a lot of training, and we deal with people from central government, from local government, from charities, private companies. We have people who are just freelancers and want to learn about content design. And when I started thinking about this talk tonight, I thought, how did I get here? Not physically here tonight on my bicycle, but how did I become a content designer? And it's a bit like when your friends ask you, so what do you do? And you say, I'm a content designer, and then they say, what the hell is that? And then you start explaining to them what a content designer is, and they glaze over, and then it's sort of lost. But really what I should be saying, I guess, is it's been sort of a life in Post-it notes in the last sort of 7-8 years. Post-it notes with user needs and journeys and analytics and Post-it notes, Post-it notes, Post-it notes. And when I thought sort of about my journey, it kind of occurred to me that my training really just happened along the way. And I was really fortunate to have been working for GES and on the NHS on very high-profile projects with really great teams. And what made those teams great, especially working on services, was that we all put our heads together to find solutions for the problems we were faced with. And that meant that people were open to sharing their skills, open to listening to other people, and really working together, which is, I think, especially important when you work on a service, because things are so interlinked. Design, UX, content is so interlinked on services that if you don't work together, everything falls apart. And sometimes it's felt a bit like sink or swim, and I've done a lot of sinking over the years, but that all sort of contributed to my learning. And there was sort of a few things about content design that really stood out for me. And one was, content design is really about problem solving. It's about finding an approach to meeting the user needs and finding the solution to that approach. And the words are really just sort of the tool I use. And content design is really content thinking. So instead of rushing into producing lots of content, there's a lot of thinking that goes on before this. And so I've been on these teams and working on these projects and learned a lot of stuff, especially here at GDS. And I thought, oh, it's always going to be like this. And of course, this is an illusion. You step out into the world and you work with some very dysfunctional teams in organizations where it's very top down and the director says, no, we're not doing it this way. I don't care about the research. You're doing it my way or nothing is going to happen. And when I started doing training, I got a lot of that stuff played back at me from the people who attended the training sessions. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what content people who are not in government, for example, or who are not in a workplace where they get support, what they struggle with. So here are a few things that people tell us. I used to be in the comms team, and then somehow I got into content. And really, we could replace comms team with any kind of team name. People just fall into content. And then they have things thrown at them, and they're just expected to deal with them and find solutions. It takes ages to publish anything in our organization, sometimes up to a year. I was in a meeting on Monday, and someone looked at the new content we had produced for their organization and sort of made this long face, and he said, well, this is going to take up to eight months to a year to publish. So it's just cuckoo. Also, content is not involved in services. We hear this over and over again. And this, I don't feel comfortable speaking up in bigger teams. So there's three things that really stand out for me. One is people are forced to produce lots of content that no one wants and needs. Not because they want to do it, because the organization says they have to. Workflow can be hugely frustrating, and I get a lot of low self-confidence from content people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, more about that later. So what do people who come to us know about content design? Very little. I really think if you work in GDS, you are in a very protected world. But people, when I show people this, for example, which is an output from a discovery we did at the NHS Alpha. So it's just a journey map in user needs, in user quotes from research. And I say to them, do you do discovery? I get blank faces. People haven't even heard of what discovery is. They've heard that there's a thing called user needs, but they've never applied it to their work, and they have no idea how to do that. They've vaguely heard of user journeys, but it's a separate thing from content. It's got nothing to do with content. They have often very little access to research or no money, so often research does not happen at all. So what happens is there's no prep phase at all. They go straight into writing, and then content is just pushed through without any governance. So if this was sort of an example content workflow, the user needs stage and the review stage are completely cut out of this. So content design for a lot of people out there is writing. Lots of words as quickly as possible. So there's really this thing I find that people think the more they write, the more productive they are. And of course, no one has, when I say, let's have a look at the user needs for your service, they say, well, we don't have time to spend 2 weeks on identifying user needs. And this is not because they don't want to, it's because of the pressures they work with. Also, services don't have content, they're just sort of screens that with words on them, and the words sort of magically fly onto the screen, or they have this thing, which I encountered sometimes. This is Hinrich, he fills in the words. This is how I was introduced to service teams sometimes. So there's a real lack of skills out there and a lot of siloed working where teams just don't talk to each other. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do at the moment. It's really just this beginning and all in development. So we run courses and we do sprints. So sprints means we go into organizations for 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks and train people on a specific project. And they are a mix of content and design sprints. So for example, we work on user needs with people, but we also do sketching sessions with content designers. Why? Not because we want them to do designers' jobs, but to free them up. So we have to do a lot of freeing up to open their horizon, to think about content in a much bigger context than just these words on screens. We encourage discovery. So when people don't have the means, the resources to do a full-blown discovery with a research team, we encourage them to do at least some desk research to understand who their audience is and what they want from them. The same with data. You would be surprised how little people use data out there. So to use data to inform what the content is going to be before you start producing it, but also to use data in conversations with SMEs, policy or marketing or comms team. We mix up teams, so we put policy teams and content together, or marketing and content, and have them map journeys. And a lot of policy people have never done this. Marketing people have never thought about their audiences in this way. We do pair writing, content crits, all the things that are standard now in government, but people out there haven't done very much of. And we want them to be bolder and confident, to scramble up all those post-it notes and throw them away. Because there's a lot of this out there. People are surrounded by hundreds of rules in their organizations, and they have this mindset of all the things they can't do. So to build up skills, we really have to change the way people think about content. And when I say to them, content is part of creating a user experience, they kind of look puzzled, because user experience for them is something to do with UX or design. It's got nothing to do with content. So content change also means culture change in a lot of organizations. So what's next? I would really like to change the training landscape for content out there. So if you Google content design training, the same 3-4 organizations come up. If you do Google content design degree, nothing comes up. Wikipedia tells me a content designer works in online marketing and sound design. Content strategy degree brings up electronic engineering degrees. There's only one place I could find, which is in Austria, where you can do an MA in content strategy, which is really a UX degree. So I think we need to go beyond the sort of short courses for 2 days and make this into something more long-term. I don't know what that is yet, but what I would like to do is, why can you study design but not content design? Why can you study creative writing but not content design? So we really have to work into making it into a recognized skill, and also to change the way the content designers perceive themselves. So really kind of 3 things: training, applying, and building confidence, then working and sharing like we are doing here, and also staying on top of the changes in the digital landscape, which is really hard for a lot of people. So 7 years after Gov.uk, in terms of training content designers, we're just starting. Thank you very much.